Hey, better late than never is what they always say, right? It's a Monday edition of the Classic Guitar Rock Daily Update. And let me begin, which has been my normal routine the last few weeks, with a plug for the Classic Guitar Rock radio station. I'm a little biased, but it's my favorite radio station. You should check it out. I was just looking over analytics, right? Running the numbers and pleasantly surprised at the number of fans. That's not the word. Listeners. 39 of the 50 states. We have a few territories, right? In the U.S., right? District of Columbia, that's a territory. What's another I don't know. We got 50 states. 39 of the 50 states have listeners. That's good. In the UK, my goodness, lots of listeners. In Canada, it's exciting. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you haven't checked out the radio station yet, all I'm asking is 40 hours a week. That's all. Just listen for 40 hours a week. That's all I'm asking. Let's hop into the news now. David Gilmour will perform 6 shows at London's Royal Albert Hall this October. Let's see, the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 14th, and 15th. If you're in London, why not buy a ticket? Go see David Gilmour. It's his first solo album in nearly a decade. Love and Strange is due to be released on September 6th. They've already released a single, and it's not coming out till September. The Piper's Call. What'd you think of that song? It'll grow on me, I guess. But that was released last week. He says, quote, via social media, quote, "I'm coming to the Albert Hall in early October this year to play my favorite venue, certainly my favorite venue in England. It always has such a wonderful atmosphere, beautiful place. It sounds great too." Now, this will be interesting because there have been crosswords between David and Roger Waters on several occasions. Of course, things didn't get any better last year when David Gilmour's wife called Waters, quote, "anti-Semitic to your rotten core," end quote. And Gilmour not only shared Paulie's tweet, but said it's demonstrably true. So yes, Roger Waters, he's kind of a bitter old dude, right? And there's not a great relationship between the two. And David has talked about his hesitancy to play stuff from the Waters years. And I don't know if that's probably because they don't like each other. That's probably why. However, the promo for these Royal Albert Hall shows does have a clip of him playing Comfortably Numb. And the reality is, many of those Roger Waters era songs were sung by David Gilmour. So it makes sense that David would play those, especially, I mean, you got to play Comfortably Numb. Got to play Comfortably Numb. Anyways, it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Mike Rutherford. Remember Mike Rutherford? He was in Genesis, and then he started this group in the 80s called Mike and the Mechanics. Well, they are going on tour, Mike and the Mechanics. And you forget how many hits they had. Mike and the Mechanics had like 3 or 4 top 10 hits. Pretty successful group. A number 1 single, The Living Years. Remember that song? Great song. One of the greatest songs of the 80s. I really think so. It's just a beautiful song. The Living Years, a number 1 hit. Silent Running. Can you hear me? Can you hear me running? It's a great song. That was a top 10 hit. All I Need Is a Miracle. Top 10 hit. So Rutherford put together Mike and the Mechanics featuring Paul Carrack. Paul Carrack, of course, sings the Silent Running song. Can you hear me? Can you hear me running? And a few other songs. He teamed up with Paul Carrack and Paul Young, not the Paul Young that sings Every Time You Go Away, by the way. A lot of times people think that's the Paul Young. It's a different Paul Young. But yeah, a number of top 10 hits, a good band. So they're going on tour. They're going to kick off spring of 2025. So this is still almost a year out. 30 UK shows. It's entitled Looking Back, Living the Years 2025 Tour. I actually saw, it was probably 15 years ago. I watched it just a few years ago, but I think it was from about 15 years ago. It was a Mike and the Mechanic show, Pro Shot concert somewhere. Can't remember where it was. It was actually really good. Paul Carrick is a super talented guy, by the way. But anyways, that's an interesting little tidbit of news. Mike and the Mechanics going on tour. That'll be fun to see if you're able to do that. We've talked about the Rock and Roll Hall of Dung lots of times over the last few weeks. Ozzy Osbourne wants to perform at his solo induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So Ozzy's already in there as a member of Black Sabbath, but he's being inducted this year as a solo artist, which he should be. And of course, typically you perform. Well, Ozzy has Parkinson's disease and has not been healthy for a while. And he says he's waiting for the all clear from his doctors. He says, quote, "I'd like to do a gig without falling over now." But one surgeon is taking his time with giving permission. So it will be interesting to see how this plays out. The last thing we want is for Ozzy to get up there and literally, how bad would that be if he fell or something? Maybe he needs to sit when he does it or something, but it is what it is. Now, here's a myth that has been around for a long time. And it's one of these things where it's like, did this make things better or worse? And you'll see what I'm talking about when I share you this. So the myth or the story goes that Cass Elliot, remember from Mamas and the Papas, Cass Elliot had left Mamas and the Papas and had a solo career and was actually doing pretty well. Well, she died in 1974. Well, the story was always she was choking on a ham sandwich. That's what killed her. She choked on a ham sandwich. But that's not really what happened. And so this is finally coming out. Owen Elliott Kugel was 7 years old when Elliott passed away at 32 from a heart attack after 36 hours of performing and partying. The former The Mamas and the Papas vocalist had been developing her solo career in London and seemed to have a bright future ahead of her. Quote, "By the time she got back to her flat, it was evening the following day," Elliott Kugel told the BBC in a new interview. "She was hungry and her dancer made her a sandwich from the only thing that was in the flat, ham, and left it on her bedside table. She never even took a bite." So she never ate the ham sandwich, let alone choked on it. Owen Elliott Kugel added, quote, "Even as a little girl, I would go home to have play dates with some of these kids, and it was kind of frequent that one of their parents would make a comment to me like, 'Hey, did your mom really die choking on a ham sandwich?' End quote." First of all, I'm shocked by that. What kind of adult would ask a little kid that question? Okay, that seems like a jerk move. She continues, quote, "It bothered me because it was such a horrible story, and I knew that it wasn't true, and it just felt so cruel to have a rumor like that perpetuated. It tortured me," end quote. Okay, now here's what's interesting. And I'm not trying to be morbid. I'm not trying. Is it worse that your mom died choking on a ham sandwich or that she died of a drug overdose? Which is, and I'm seriously asking the question. This child is sad that the rumor was she died eating a ham sandwich when in reality she died from the drugs and alcohol. I almost think the ham sandwich would be better, but I don't know. But anyways, Sue Cameron, who's a journalist, after 5 decades, she wanted to know where the story had come from. And turns out it comes from the manager, right? Manager. I said, I really just wish I knew where that story came from. Cameron looked me in the eye and said, I did it. Okay, so I said this wrong. Okay, after 5 decades of wanting to know where the story had come from, she was face to face with journalist Sue Cameron, a friend of Elliott. So Sue Cameron, not a manager, Sue Cameron was a friend of Cass Elliott, and she admitted that she's the one that started this story of the ham sandwich. Sue Cameron reported that she'd called Elliott's manager, Alan Carr, on hearing of the tragedy. Quote, so many of her peers had passed away due to drug overdoses that Carr really wanted to protect her. And there was a sandwich that was found there. Carr came up with the choking story and asked Cameron to use it. So the manager came up with the story, but it was Sue Cameron, the journalist, that perpetuated it. She added, saying it was originally only meant to avoid speculation until full details were available, instead of becoming a long-believed myth. Alan Carr wanted to protect his client's legacy, and in a weird way, it did. So now I understand it. It makes sense. Well, yeah, that's kind of my point. You know, if you say you died from choking on a sandwich, then people don't say you died from drugs, which is really apparently what happened. She's part of that 20. Was she a 27 club? Was she 27 when she died? I don't know. We'll have to look that up. But after all these years, us thinking Cass Elliott died choking on a sandwich, not true. She never took a bite of the sandwich. Let's go to mail. Got some mail here to classicguitarrock@mail.com. Marlon is checking in. Hello, Jeremy. I got in trouble yesterday on another channel for saying Joe Perry sucks. Can you believe that? Oh, Marlon, when are you ever going to learn? No. You know, sometimes you can't lie, right? If that's the way you feel. I mean, I'm not going to be mad at you for saying that. So, you know, this kind of ties into our email we have here today. I mentioned earlier Roger Waters, and he has a history of saying controversial things. Well, our email today deals with someone else who says controversial things. This is an email from Lauren. Lauren, a longtime supporter of the podcast and the radio station. And thank you so much, Lauren, for your support. Lauren's talking about Ted Nugent. Now, maybe you've seen this. Let me read the email and we'll talk about it. Lauren says, Ted is such a blowhard a-hole, going after Joan Jett for being in the latest top 100 guitarists. Of course, she shouldn't be on the list, but don't go after Joan Jett. Go after Rolling Stone magazine. Joan didn't ask to be nominated. I think he's losing it. Like Zappa said, shut up and play your guitar. And then it says, sending a screenshot of Joan's reply in case you haven't seen it. Have a good weekend, Lauren. I have seen it. In fact, that's about a year old. That's been around a while. There's a few things going on here. Number one, Ted should actually be quiet. I mean, he's gotten himself into, and I love Ted Nugent's music. I do. But I do wish he'd just shut up and play his guitar. I love Pink Floyd. I love Roger Waters. I wish he'd shut up and play music. I wish John Cougar Mellencamp would shut up and play music, right? It always boggles my mind in the US, whenever you go down the political road, right? Any crowd is probably going to be about a 50-50 split. Okay. So if you lean one side or the other, why would you want to alienate half of your audience? I never get that. I don't understand whether it's Roger or Ted. Guys, why don't you just play your music that people are paying to see and just shut up? You don't have to share your opinions. And no, that's not anti-free speech. That is, be smart. Don't be dumb. Don't alienate half of your audience. That's all I'm saying. Maybe it's the businessman in me that says that. So there's this Rolling Stone top 100 guitarists, and they put Joan Jett on. Joan Jett's not even the best guitar player in her band. She's probably the third best guitar player in the band, and there's only 2 guitar players. And that's not a slam on Joan. She plays bar chords. She's a rhythm guitarist. No way in heck should she be on any top 10 guitar list. And I think Lauren agrees with me on that point. But Ted, Lauren makes an excellent point. It's not Joan's fault she's on that list. If he wants to take Rolling Stone to task, by all means do so. Rolling Stone is a joke. We all know it. But why would you say anything about Joan? And to be honest, Lauren, I haven't read it in a long time. I kind of thought it was kind of taken out of context. Did he say anything bad about Joan? I don't remember him actually saying anything bad about Joan other than she had no business being on the list, I think. And I could be wrong. I didn't know that he said any more than that. And of course, Joan replied back with him being a jerk or a bully or I don't remember. It was all dumb. It's a year old. But to Lauren's point, she's right on both counts, right? Joan should not be on that list. Doesn't make any sense. And Ted should just shut his pie hole. Really easy. So I agree with you on that. Marlon says, Marlon, you're going to get me in trouble. Marlon says, who's going to question a large woman choking on food, right? That's terrible. Well, see, that's part of the problem, right? This story of, Mama Cass choking on a sandwich, it just played into that whole stereotype, right? That's part of the problem. It's more than plausible. Okay, Marlon, we're both going to be in trouble now. All right. Marlon, thank you for checking in. Lauren, thank you for the email. Any of you can email me at classicguitarrock@mail.com. Thank you so much for all your support, for following us on X, on Facebook, on YouTube. Please check out Classic Guitar Rock Radio. You'll like it. 40 hours a week. That's all I'm asking. We'll do this all tomorrow, guys. See ya. Live long and prosper.